Thank you all for being here. Let me start with you, George. How do you explain the ubiquity of the Constitution today as a real living piece of political debate?
Well, first of all, American politics always has a retrospective cast, always looking back to the Declaration and the Constitution. All of our arguments get litigated through these documents, from did Jefferson have the power to make the Louisiana Purchase? James Madison, his successor, the architect of the Constitution, vetoed an internal improvements bill because he thought that went beyond the powers of the federal government, right down to today, when the most novel new development in our politics, the Tea Party movement, is named after something that happened in 1773. So there's a retrospective cast naturally built into our politics. But what has happened today is a large number of Americans, this one included, believe that the somewhat promiscuous expansion of government power in recent years raises questions about whether we still have a government of limited, delegated, and enumerated powers. That is the Madison Project still viable?
So, you say over the last few years. Do you mean particularly now in the Obama administration?
Yes.
What do you say to that, to that very categoric?
Wow. Well, I think that this retrospective cast that George Will refers to is absolutely right, but there's some gaps, some holes, lacuna, gulfs, abysses. You know, you read the Constitution in the Congress, but oops, I forgot the part about slavery. You talk about women and people of color who have been elided, distorted, relegated to the margins, and altogether seen as marginalia. I think that the Constitution is a powerful, living, vibrant document. I think it's been hijacked by people with narrow, vicious, and parochial visions, and I think the assertion that now we of all people, this generation, is somehow vulnerable to rebuff of the Constitution is like a Hegelian problem. You think your generation is the greatest generation and the apotheosis of history finds its resting point in you. Slow down. The point is that the Constitution is durable, it's powerful. Because of its flexibility, black people and others are able to argue their way into an American identity and a vision for democracy that initially they were barred from. So I think that it's powerful.
Well, you just raised this. I mean, obviously, two different held views on the size of government and the strengths of the central versus the state. So the question then is it an absolutist document? Is it open to interpretation? Is it something that the letter of the law and the actual words have to be followed today, 200 years later?
It's one thing to say it's open to interpretation, which it obviously is. It's very open textured language. On the other hand, I mean, when you say unreasonable searches and seizures, what's reasonable? We argue about that. But to say that the Constitution is a living, evolving document, as you did, is almost oxymoronic. A Constitution is supposed to freeze things. It is an anti-evolutionary device, as Justice Scalia has said. It is intended to put certain things beyond the reach of transient majorities. That's the language of Justice Jackson in a famous case. The point of the Constitution is that majorities are dangerous, and we have to protect against them. Hence what Oliver Wendell Holmes said, if my fellow citizens want to go to hell, I'll help them, because that's my job. He was saying the Constitution exists to enable majorities. That's exactly wrong.
That's all great on paper, I mean, which is where it's written. But when it makes the transition from parchment to pavement, there, again, is the rub. The reality is that that document, when I talked about being living and vital, I'm talking about the interpretation of it. I'm talking about the meaning of it. I'm talking about the symbolic power and the cachet, the purchase of notions of freedom, justice, equality, and democracy. They mean nothing if they are simply interred in ink. They must travel into our common humanity. And I'm suggesting that that document is critical to the reinterpretation of people of color and women. We were rejected into the mainstream of America. Were it not for some vibrant reinterpretation of that document and appealing to its living legacy, none of us could be here. I wouldn't be here talking to you, not as an equal, at least.